We hear now from Faculty Senate Chair Tucker Readdy about issues important to his constituency.
Dr. Readdy, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So one of the issues that the university is facing is budget cuts. And it seems that it's going to be $5 million in the next 2 years. How will this affect faculty confidence?
I think most faculty are pretty understanding that given the revenues that are going to come into the state over the next biennium and potentially the next few bienniums, we will have to make some difficult choices. And the governor's made recommendations that affect all state agencies, including the university. So the amount that's been recommended, in my mind, was actually relatively palatable. And I think that we can make it through this next biennium, if all goes according to the way it's laid out right now, without having too significant of cuts that will really impact the confidence of the faculty. And part, I believe, that's because of the fact that we have a new president that's coming to the university. We'll have a new provost who's coming to the university soon. And so that sense of a new start and opportunity is really strong, and I think can maybe overcome some of the negative sentiment that's associated with budget cuts.
You as chair, how are you preparing the Senate for the budget cuts? Are you preparing them in any way?
Well, right now we are really just watching what's happening in the legislative session, because everything can change in the beat of a heart. And so in that respect, we do try to provide at each Senate meeting an update as to the current legislative recommendations, whether that's from the Joint Appropriations Committee or the governor or the other parties who are involved. But I think right now, again, we're trying to be optimistic about what the outcome is going to be. And then certainly there are the people in Old Main who have to do a little bit of the planning should things turn out worse than they're actually in the recommendations right now.
You are part of the athletics department?
Part of the kinesiology and health, yes.
Okay. When I look at newspapers or the overall consensus, there's this feeling that athletics won't have a budget cut. What's really going on with athletics? Or is there something that's going to happen with athletics?
Sure. When President Nichols addressed the Senate in January, her statement was that the university and all parts of the university are going to need to share in the budget cuts the way that they share in the funding from the block grant. So I don't think that athletics is outside of that aspect, and their portion of the block grant is relatively small by comparison to academic units and personnel. The issue that's become a little bit more contentious is the recommendation for $8 million over the biennium for continued athletic performance and athletic competitiveness. And I think in a time when budgets are being cut, certainly people are going to look at that and say, why is this important to the academic mission of the university? But as somebody who studies the topic, as a country, we made the decision a long time ago to embed competitive sport within our university system. I don't know that right now is the time to take on that debate again. I believe that the student athletes who will benefit from that increased competitive funding bring quite a bit to the university that it's easy to overlook if you don't consider who is truly impacting. This isn't about increasing coaches' salaries. It's not about fluff spending. It's about really being able to make sure that the experiences for the student athletes at the University of Wyoming are as comparable as it would be at other universities across the United States. And I think when we put it in that context, then that money is incredibly important. And we need to consider the long-term spending and not just focus in on a 2-year biennium recommendation.
So last fall, President McGinnity rolled out his diversity plan. How is the Faculty Senate involved in that?
The Faculty Senate is not directly involved right now, and there are 2 pieces to that. One was the creation of the special assistant to the president for the purpose of diversity, and then the second is going to be the creation of the diversity planning task force or strategic planning force. Forgive me for not remembering the exact name. And so in that respect, I believe that many constituent groups across campus will try to have someone as part of that planning committee, and I'm sure that Faculty Senate will try to have an appropriate representative from one of our committees on that group as well to make sure that our interests are represented as everything moves forward in the coming months.
So you are basically running unopposed again for vice chair, which means that in 2 years you would be chair again.
Correct.
What is your view of leadership? What is your plan of leadership? And what are you doing to be an advocate for faculty?
Sure. Leadership is one of the most studied topics out there, and there's a reason, and that reason is because no one knows the answer as to what makes a good leader. And I think that's because the context really dictates what kind of leadership is necessary. I really feel that one of the greatest limits to leadership in the Faculty Senate is the fact that the chair only serves a 1-year term. And so it's really hard for us to develop a long-term perspective and strategic planning that would allow us to advance bigger visions that we might have for faculty leadership on campus. The Board of Trustees members serve 6-year terms. Administrators can be in their positions for very long periods of time, and we're in and out in the blink of an eye. And so in that respect, really what I've tried to do in addition to enhancing communication around that vision is put into effect some systemic pieces that will allow for some long-term visioning. And in that respect, one of the issues that we will hopefully get through by the end of this year is to create a past chairs council, which would be made of former faculty senate chairs who can be removed somewhat from the day-to-day business of the Senate and really think about in 2 years and 3 years, what role should the Senate be playing, what academic priorities should the university have, and then being able to communicate that to all the people on campus who need to hear it.
As chair of the Faculty Senate, what are things that you would like to see the president address when she comes in?
I'd like to see the incoming president do exactly what she's prioritized. First, that's move into her office. That's incredibly important because she's going to spend a lot of time there, as do most of us. But I think it's important that she gets out and shakes hands and meets people, and she's suggested that's a priority. I really think that one strong component of leadership that I try to bring to the table and that I've really seen in incoming President Nichols is just an ability to connect with people. And if you can connect with people, then we can reasonably disagree on issues that might affect us, but that doesn't necessarily compromise the working relationship that we have. And so it's going to be important for her to do that with a large number of people, right? She's got people internal to the university, she's got people external to the university, and she's going to have a lot of names to keep track of. But once she gets past that stage, I really do think that she's going to have to sell everyone on the value of program evaluation as the university moves forward. And that is, right now we're in a tough budget time and people have linked program evaluation to potential program cuts. If we were having this discussion 4 years ago when money wasn't an issue, would people say, oh, program review is a good thing? So I think this is a long-term move that we need to adopt and be more persistent about, is making sure that all our academic programs are achieving the highest level of excellence that they can. And she's going to really have to sell that to people, and then obviously sell if there's any recommendations towards consolidating programs or eliminating programs. She's going to have to communicate that very well also. But I think that's going to be the number one priority for a lot of folks on campus, and whether she wants to or not, that's probably going to be the first thing on her plate after she meets people and gets moved into her office.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you again.